On February 8th, 2024, Helldivers 2 was released on PlayStation and PC. It was getting almost universal praise from critics and players alike, but if you bought the game within the first 2 weeks, you discovered it takes at least 30 minutes of staring at this screen before you'd be able to play the game. The servers were at capacity. Any sales expectations developer Arrowhead Studios may have had for the release of Helldivers 2 were blown out of the water. This game was literally suffering from its own success. Just to try and put it in perspective, Helldivers 1 on PC has an all-time peak of 6,691 players, while Helldivers 2 peaked on the week of its release at 458,709 players. And that's not even including the PlayStation players. If you managed to wait long enough to get into the game, you were likely going to either get disconnected from the game mid-mission, even if your internet was working just fine, or your game would just crash altogether, which is a very tough pill to swallow when most missions take at least 30 minutes to complete. But Arrowhead Studios were quick to double the size of their servers and implement smart changes to the game, like booting players that are AFK for 15 minutes. CEO Johan Pilestedt around this time was seen replying to a tweet talking about the game's lack of server capacity.
If you have no cash, get it later. While we made a really fun game, it's worth waiting until the servers support that capacity. I mean, as a CEO, I of course want the game to be as profitable as possible. But if you spent your last dollar sign and got stuck in server queues, I'd be heartbroken emoji.
Which is a refreshing sentiment to see from a CEO. Now, to be fair, it's probably easy to make statements like that when your product is shattering every sales goal your team imagined and you're literally suffering from your own success. But when I saw this tweet, I thought, that's cool. Is he ever going to make a big public statement that the game is now ready? I've put over 100 hours into the game myself, but have been hesitant to pressure my friends to buy it so they can play it with me due to connection and stability issues. Until now. My name's PoopBro420, and I'm here to tell you why now is the time to get into Helldivers 2, even if you're uncomfortable with root level anti-cheat. Helldivers 2 is an up to 4-player cooperative third-person mission-based shooter where you and up to 3 other heroes liberate foreign planets together to expand humanity's grasp on the galaxy. You do this by invading a variety of unique planets, killing everything you come into contact with, and extracting gloriously. When you drop onto a planet, you're put into a big open area where you can do your objectives in any order that you choose. You and your team must work together to figure out how to carry out your mission as effectively as possible, because things get bad fast. Teamwork and communication are vital for your survival. You have a lot of room for error, though. Whenever you die, your teammate can call your ship for a reinforcement. One of the best features of this game are your stratagems. Airstrikes, heavy weapons, and even heat-seeking lasers are just a call away. Put in the combination of buttons that matches the thing you want into your little armband, and throw down a tracking device where you want to drop hell and run. You are Earth's last offense. Oh, that was good.
That was good.
Humanity is in the middle of 2 wars in this game. On one end of the galaxy, we're trying to end the giant bug race called the Terminids. On the other end of the galaxy, we have giant robots called the Automatons. As time passes, the Helldivers gain and lose ground, based on how well the players follow the major orders given by Super Earth, but more on that later. Combat has a semi-realistic weight to it. Let's say you're about to throw an airstrike, but you get hit by an enemy. You might drop your stratagem and end up blowing your whole team up. Friendly fire is hella on, by the way, so you have to be careful what you call down and make sure you're not dropping a bomb on your friends too many times. As strong as your Helldiver is, they are very squishy. The entire game has this ultra-satirical, patriotic tone where you're constantly being reminded that you're fighting for the future of liberty, democracy, and innocent babies, when you're clearly the bad guys. The hilarious pro-war rhetoric gets everyone in the right mood when they're playing this game. The soundtrack is also fantastic, and always gets me hyped up in the moment, especially during those 2 minutes after you've called for extraction and you have to keep the helipad safe so your Pelican can land. Live service games are still finding their footing in the games industry. Despite many of my favorite games being live service, I'll be the first to admit that most of them resort to predatory tactics like limited time battle passes, events, and cosmetics placed behind paywalls in order to survive. I get it, they need to get paid so they can continue to add content to the game, but Helldivers 2 seems to have observed all the complaints the other big games have received and adjusted their approach to be more in favor of the customer. Here's what I mean. So this game's version of a battle pass is called a war bond. War bonds give you access to unlockable weapons, armors, capes, and my personal favorite, handshakes. Within 3 months of coming out, Arrowhead has already released 3 of these war bonds. My favorite thing about this approach is that these war bonds never go away. Instead of weaponizing FOMO with season or battle passes, Helldivers lets you choose which war bonds you'd like to unlock first at your own pace. War bonds are purchased with an in-game currency called super credits. Now you can purchase super credits if you want, but I honestly don't think you need to. The game is pretty generous when it comes to finding super credits during missions or unlocking them in the war bonds themselves. The items inside war bonds are unlocked with medals you earn from doing missions along with daily objectives like kill this many enemies with a certain weapon. The game is throwing so much reward currency at you that even after 100 hours, I haven't needed to buy any super credits at all, which is probably why the best part of this game is only getting stronger by the day. Its community. Games like Helldivers live and die by their community. Once your player base moves on, your game is dead in the water. Something that a lot of people have pointed out is that Helldivers' player count has stayed pretty high compared to the other live service games. Normally they peak at release and then decline sharply, but that hasn't been the case here. I think one reason the game has such staying power is the ongoing war that gets updated through weekly goals called major orders. I wouldn't go as far as to call it like the game has a story, but it is always interesting to me to see how the galaxy map has changed, not to mention how much the enemy and the humans upgrade their weapons, based on what major orders the players are and are not able to do. For example, early on in the game's campaign, I guess we call it, the players were unable to complete the major order that was Liberate Malevolon Creek. This was mostly because fighting the automatons was so hard at this point in the game. The automatons utilized dropships to surround players and overwhelm them easily. Not too long after that, we started getting much better anti-air weapons. Also, I think they made shooting down the dropships easier in general. A few weeks later, we were able to completely wipe the automatons off the map, thinking we had defeated them permanently. But they came back, and were now much harder to fight than they were before. I'd say the biggest thing that impresses me is how much the game evolves based on how we play the game. Almost like a D&D game where the dungeon master and the players are ultimately working together to write the story. The people at Arrowhead, in charge of the major orders, even refer to themselves as game masters. Nothing too crazy has happened yet, but like any good GM, they've been laying obvious seeds that will hatch into bigger problems later, like the E710 farms that we built on the Terminid planets. We were attempting to experiment on the bugs because that never backfires at all. Shortly after that, flying bugs started appearing. But why is now the time to get into Helldivers, assuming you haven't already? To put it simply, the game has achieved stability. I know it's a little underwhelming, but the big news is that the game will now work for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're playing on PC or PlayStation, or if you're doing crossplay or no crossplay, it just works. No more only playing with people that are on your friends list in case your game crashes so that you can jump back into their game and vice versa. Normally, I would write a game off if it crashed half as much as Helldivers did for me, but this game is so fun that I just don't care. I had to keep coming back. The rate that they have been adding content is astounding. I always catch myself thinking, what are they going to do next? Cars? Actually, yes, there are going to be cars. When things don't work in the game, it can be crushing. But when things do work in the game, it just feels rewarding. You and your friends came up with a plan, executed, and now you're reaping all the benefits. When you start pumping up the difficulty, you're gonna really feel like you earned that hug on the ship from your fellow Helldiver, even if you are literally ruining the galaxy. If you're still here, I want to thank you so much for watching my video. And for the love of God, dude, seriously, have a great day.